Today it's my great privilege to interview Xavier Beteta, a Guatemalan composer who was recently involved in Deus Ex Musica's Composer Project. I know that you've written a piece based on a series of paintings as well.
Yeah, the one you're talking about is the piano concerto, and that's inspired in three paintings by a painter called Tomás de Merlo. He was, I think, 17th or 18th century Guatemalan painter. They are religious paintings that talk about the Passion of Christ. So in a way, I guess that connects with a little bit with my background as Guatemalan and the different traditions that are in Guatemala, particularly when Holy Week comes. It's very a lot of religious fervor. And those paintings kind of like relate to the Passion of Christ. Those paintings were stolen in 2014, I think. So I wanted to create a piece that connects with the paintings and in a way say, okay, we don't have the physical paintings anymore, or we don't know where they are, but the essence of the painting can still communicate or speak to us. And if not, we don't see them specifically, but we can still bring them back through music or through sound. So what's the piano concerto is about? Like taking the essence of those paintings and try to put that in music.
Can you tell us briefly what each movement is depicting?
The first movement is a painting about the prayer at the garden, when Jesus goes to the garden to pray and ask God to please let this cup pass from him. So it's kind of like an intimate, dark, solitary atmosphere in the night. The second movement is actually the slow movement called La Piedad, or the painting is about the Virgin Mary holding the body of Christ after the crucifixion. It's very painful and slow, so I put it as a second movement. And then the third movement is a fast movement, which in the painting is called the crowning with thorns. The soldiers make fun of Christ and put the crown there, and they take his clothes and etc. So it's a lot of movement and a lot of fast motions going on. the concerto stands as a three-movement concerto, but the idea is to, to have the three paintings, and in the same way you can go in a museum and kind of look at. You don't have to see it chronologically as the story happened, but you could, start looking at the Piedad first, and then maybe the prayer at the garden. So ideally, my idea was to conceive a set of 5 or 6 paintings, because 6 were the ones that were stolen, and just use them as a movable form where, you can decide in which order you play them, or how many of them you are going to put in the concert. But so far I have just written 3.
Okay.
So far the concerto is just 3 movements, but hopefully I can write the next 3.
Yeah. Even though your music isn't limited to sacred music, sacred themes, or exploring some of the biblical stories and biblical text does seem to make quite a few appearances in your music. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that informs my music is the idea of the sacred in general, and I'm really attracted to this whole tradition that exists, of sacred works and sacred themes, and in a way, sort of like bring them back, but in a contemporary musical language, because there is this sort of feeling that, well, of course we had sacred music, we had Bach writing masses and cantatas, and then Mozart wrote masses, and Beethoven wrote the Missa Solemnis. But at some point, all of this kind of like fades, and we enter modernism, and modernism is this new age where we break with the past, and sort of like sacred music falls on the side, or maybe composers do not engage with it that much, or if you engage with it, it has to be somehow with a traditional language. But the question is, well, can we still write sacred music that is with a language that is dissonant? I mean, is it possible? I mean, I don't know. It's an exploration that has to be done, and see whether it works or not.
Thanks for spending some time with us. Really fascinating conversation. And
thank you, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to sharing this with everyone. Thanks to all of you who have tuned in for this interview. We will include extra links to Javier's music in the description below.